Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wally Global. Today is April 11th, 2025. The geopolitical struggle of the Sino-US trade war has begun to spread from the trade war to the financial war. It seems that the Trump administration and his staff seem to be increasingly trying to kick out Chinese concept stocks. That is, Chinese companies listed in the United States from the channels for raising funds in the United States. If they are kicked out like this, will Hong Kong be great again? Because will Chinese stocks return to Hong Kong or even go public in London? Returning to Hong Kong seems to be very positive for Hong Kong in the short term. I will discuss the pros and cons with you. The pros are, of course, good, but the cons are fatal. Why not go to the video to discuss this news and analyze it? Before we begin, I kindly invite you to subscribe to my channel. It's completely free. Feel free to leave a comment, like the video, and share it with your friends to help support the channel.
Thank you for your support.
First of all, I would like to quote a report from Economic Weekly. In fact, why Chinese stocks have suddenly become the focus of the game between China and the United States. Recently on the X platform, a reporter from Fox News Business Channel, everyone knows what kind of Fox is, pro-Republican or Trump's favorite. His name is Charles Gasparino. He broke the news that the Trump administration seems to have plans to accelerate the delisting of Chinese stocks. Why? As the Sino-US trade war becomes increasingly fierce, there are still a group of members of the US Congress who think that there are risks in listing Chinese stocks in the United States. They say that if these companies are unwilling to disclose their planned drafts or do not explain their relationship with the Chinese government, how can they explain their relationship with the Chinese government? I wonder what the relationship with the Chinese government is like. Of course, we don't know. Those congressmen will certainly target this kind of behavior, and the chances are increasing. American law can directly say goodbye to them. In addition, the new chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Atkins, may also be responsible for this matter. Although he is a person who likes the free market and does not like regulation very much, how will he deal with Chinese stocks listed in the United States? It has become a mystery for the time being. In addition, a US congressman also mentioned the issue of golden shares, saying that the Chinese government controls some companies through special shares and believes that these are national security risks. Wow. Is it really such a big deal? Is it really reported like this? In addition to the voice of Congress, this staff or cabinet member, Scott Bessent, the US Treasury Secretary, also mentioned the issue of Chinese concept stocks when he was interviewed by Fox News. When the reporter asked him whether he would really delist Chinese concept stocks, he directly said that everything is possible. He directly said, rule out, not rule out. There is a chance that the US Congress will continue to tighten controls on Chinese goods and capital, but the final decision is in Trump's hands. Of course, we hope that Trump is a good person. Trump is a good person. He and Xi Jinping are good friends, and he should not do anything rash. But it's hard to say. People say he is crazy. This statement seems to have said something that means that the United States really has a chance to make a move. But how to play it? There will be variables. As for Chinese stocks listed in the US, how will he deal with it? In fact, many have already thought of a way out, such as going to Hong Kong for listing or testing the waters in London. Everyone understands that some Chinese companies, such as Shein, are also considering going to London for IPO. Why do they choose these two places? I will deduce and talk about it with you later. But on the other hand, I want to talk more about Hong Kong this time. I want to say why Chinese stocks returning to Hong Kong and heading to London chose these places. If Chinese stocks are really kicked out by the United States, where will they go? Everyone has guessed the differences between Hong Kong and London. Hong Kong has advantages in geography and culture. It is close to China and is under China's full jurisdiction. It has many laws, and of course, it is its own place with its own people and a mature financial market. It has now become an international financial center. London is also a global financial center. Many emerging markets and companies like to go to these places to try. The United States doesn't want to be played by you and will kick you out. Naturally, they will go to these places. Second and third, the so-called financial market, for example, the cigarette company mentioned earlier, is also listed in London. This example proves that Chinese stocks actually have a plan B. Assuming that Chinese stocks really flow back to Hong Kong or go to London, our focus in this episode is on what impact will it have on Hong Kong if it flows back to Hong Kong? Of course, how do we divide the pros and cons of development? Let's look at it point by point. First of all, the benefits depend on several aspects. China's geopolitical advantages and whether the company is beneficial should be separated. The return of Chinese concept stocks to Hong Kong has brought a lot of foreign capital. If you want to invest in Chinese concept stocks, you have to come to Hong Kong to invest. But remember that these foreign capitals must adapt to the rules of the game in Hong Kong. To put it bluntly, of course, Li Keqiu also said that we must abide by Hong Kong's laws and rules of the game, such as the national security law and the anti-monopoly law. Strict regulation, of course, must regulate some of the operations and behaviors of enterprises and also make foreign funds and enterprises' activities in Hong Kong to a certain extent based on Hong Kong's legal framework. These frameworks can actually be observed if there is an opportunity to comply with the country's interests and security, etc., and are linked to China's strategy. It is an advantage for China's geopolitics. So I said there is a benefit and a benefit. Don't mess around and don't threaten the country's security. Why? Because these companies and funds operating in Hong Kong are equivalent to having an extra bargaining chip on the contrary. In geopolitical wrestling, it is beneficial to China in disguised international games. In the long run, this situation will increase China's voice and say in global competition. You may ask why Chinese concept stocks don't list directly in the mainland. Of course, what I just said is that the company is listed in Hong Kong. But if you say that all the private equity funds in the United States, when you buy these stocks, you must abide by the laws when you become a shareholder. If there are any mistakes, please correct them. You may ask why these Chinese stocks are not listed directly in the mainland, because everyone knows that there have been some news reports that the mainland sometimes has some windows to guide the sale of stocks. Sometimes we need to stabilize the market. We don't discuss whether it is good or not, but the company itself will think that the ratio between selling and buying is that you cannot sell more than you buy. There are also relative restrictions on funds. You have seen that the top 10 foreign private equity funds have difficulties in remitting money. In comparison, Hong Kong has an advantage. We sing the praises of Hong Kong. International investors in Hong Kong, such as American foreign investors, still have free flow of funds today. Although the flow of funds between China and the United States is sometimes blocked, sometimes it is not just China and the United States. Sometimes restrictions on pension funds, teacher funds, and the like do not allow Chinese capital to invest in Hong Kong or in the mainland. There are many Canadian teacher funds, pension funds, and so on. We call these kind of systematic funds, which may not be in Hong Kong, so they will be blocked. But Hong Kong has temporarily retained this advantage as a transit point. Foreign capital flows into Hong Kong. On the surface, they all want to invest in Chinese stocks. There are opportunities for those funds to flow in, but not all of them. I will talk about the pros and cons later. I want to talk about the cons. Where are the restrictions? In fact, their funds and operations are all in Hong Kong. If you are in Hong Kong, you have to obey the rules of the game in Hong Kong. Of course, the more foreign capital is in Hong Kong, the more China has an extra card in the geopolitical game. Trump often says, "You have no card, now have card. Isn't it actually very good?" When Li Keqiang sold the port, some people said that it was not business as usual. Isn't that similar? But the Li Keqiang's port selling crisis incident is still fermenting. Now it seems that they are looking for some Chinese and Hong Kong capital to raise funds to buy Li Keqiang's port operation. What should they do if it is taken back after the purchase? Let's talk about another piece, because we are afraid that it will take too long. Of course, the benefits are good, and we are all happy. Hong Kong has an opportunity. Hong Kong is developed. Of course, there are good and bad sides. Everything is balanced. It must be said that everything has its pros and cons. Chinese stocks leaving the United States and going to Hong Kong and London may not be able to completely replace the role of the entire US market because the breadth and depth are different. The United States itself has many large retirement funds and international funds, such as Canada, Australia, Europe, etc. Many things are approved in the United States, but in Hong Kong, they may not come to Hong Kong because some have already determined not to invest in Hong Kong and are not in the mainland. If you put it in Hong Kong when the market is closed, there will be no big investors. We think that the breadth of the market and the depth of the market of these so-called systematic big investors are not that deep. In fact, these Chinese concept stocks are at a disadvantage. They are discounted by a certain amount. I don't know whether it is 60% or 50% or 40% or 70%. We need to study it in depth. In short, it is much weaker, but it is better than nothing. This is a disadvantage for Chinese concept stocks, but it is also a benefit for Hong Kong. In any case, more is better than nothing. It is definitely better than nothing. The second restriction is that if there is any, will the return of Chinese concept stocks to Hong Kong make Hong Kong one of the links in the internal circulation of China's economy? There are pros and cons. It was said before that the mainland has window guidance to restrict capital outflows and so on. Will there be these regulations now? Will they gradually appear in Hong Kong? I hope that people will not often say that they hope Hong Kong must maintain its status as an international financial center. Of course, we hope that it will not be like this. But of course, when there is interest, it will control it when it feels it is necessary. Sometimes, in some extreme cases, okay, everyone still remembers that in the mainland market, all of the window guidance and so on mentioned earlier in Shanghai, Shenzhen, etc. Will those mainland regulations be slowly experienced in Hong Kong? In the long run, will it be a hidden worry? For some foreign capital coming to Hong Kong, of course, those adventurers' paradises of foreign capital coming to Hong Kong are, of course, some riskier funds. Because the risk is high, the return it requires is a little higher. Another thing is that those are actually small things just now. What worries me the most is that Hong Kong has become more and more important to China because these Chinese companies cannot raise funds in the United States by listing and using Hong Kong. Hong Kong has become a nostril for China to breathe. If some American politicians see this important weakness of the CCP, then Hong Kong is a target. If they continue to fight like this, it means that when they mess with Hong Kong, those American politicians will concentrate their firepower on Hong Kong at any time, such as financial sanctions, financial system sanctions, financial warfare, etc. These people must have a lot of ideas because they have many experts. Will it be like locking the back ditch against Hong Kong? Then Hong Kong will become a battlefield for the wrestling between the two countries and the political struggle. It is a big risk for Hong Kong. If the financial status is impacted, not only will the Chinese concept stocks be affected, but other stocks listed in Hong Kong will also be affected, and the citizens of Hong Kong will be implicated. In the end, if the Chinese concept stocks are kicked out by the United States, it will really do more harm than good. If I look at it this way, it will be good for Hong Kong in the short term. Everyone will see that they are very happy. The importance of Hong Kong has increased. The premise is that we hope that Trump in the United States is a good person. He suddenly changed and chatted with Xi, a good friend, then Hong Kong would be developed. But on the other hand, if he chatted with a good person, he would not kick out the Chinese concept stocks in the United States. So it is hard to predict whether Hong Kong will be blessed or cursed. If Hong Kong is really affected, you should think about whether the Hong Kong dollar will be impacted. Will it be decoupled from the US dollar? It may be that decoupling from the United States is a long-term pain rather than a short-term pain, which may not be a bad thing. It is obviously backed by China, but now it is pegged to the US dollar, which means it is backed by the United States. If it is done with bad intentions, the situation is worrying. What if it is decoupled? How much will the Hong Kong dollar depreciate? Will it depreciate by 20% or half of the RMB? If a financial war really breaks out, anything can happen. The extent of depreciation is really scary. Can it still maintain its role as a financial center? If they block you, of course, they don't want you to become a financial center or an inner circle center. So what? So you can see that I wrote on the cover that I used Dickens's A Tale of Two Cities. This is the best of times. This is the worst of times. After deeply experiencing the situation in Hong Kong, it is hard to predict whether it will be blessed or cursed. I don't know how to look at it. Those who feel happy can also express their feelings below, and those who feel worried can also speak out. Today's time is almost up. Please feel free to leave a message below. I hope you like this video. Share it with friends. Remember to subscribe. If possible, you can share the video with your friends. Thank you for watching. Bye.